Hey guys, NCWQ here, and if you can see in front of me, we have Leopango Volcano. Leopango is a scenic 8 by 11 caldera, and it's filled by one of El Salvador's largest lakes. It has scalloped 150 to 500 meter high rim. The caldera lies immediately east of the capital city of San Salvador, and it is controlled by regional faults of the Central Salvador Graben. Four major dacic rhyolitic explosive eruptions during the late Pliocene and Holocene produced extensive pyroclastic flow and pyroclastic fault deposits that blanket much of El Salvador. The latest collapse resulted from a massive 5th century CE Terra Blanca Jovan eruption, which produced widespread pyroclastic flows and devastated early Mayan cities. Post-caldera eruptions formed a series of glassy, dacitic, and andesitic lava domes within the lake and near its shore. The Islas Quemadas, a group of low islets in the center of the lake that marked the summit of largely submerged lava dome, were formed in the 1879 to 80 during the only historical eruption of Ilopango. So anyways, I was looking at volcano stuff today, and I found an article which came out, Colossal Volcano Behind Mystery Global Cooling Finally Found. So we're going to put this on spin mode here. The ices of Greenland and Antarctica bear the fingerprints of a monster, a gigantic volcanic eruption in 539 to 540 AD that killed tens of thousands and helped trigger one of the worst periods of global cooling in the last 2,000 years. Now, after years of searching, a team of scientists has finally tracked down the source of the eruption. The team's work, published in quaternary science reviews, lays out new evidence that ties the natural disaster of Leopango, a now dormant volcano in El Salvador. Researchers estimate that its 6th century eruption, Leopango, expelled the equivalent of 10.5 cubic miles of dense rock, making it one of the biggest volcanic events on Earth in the last 7,000 years. Let's go a little closer here. The blast was more than 100 times bigger than the 1980 Mount St. Helens eruption and several times larger than the 1991 eruption of Mount Pinatubo. It dealt the local Maya settlements a blow that forever altered their trajectory. This is the largest eruption in the Central America that human beings have ever witnessed, said lead study author Rob Dull, a geologist at California Lutheran University. The importance of the event is even greater, both how the Maya overcame it and how it impacted what happened next. The new work helps solve a long-time geologic mystery. Hang on a second. I'm lost. I got lost for a second. Okay. Historical accounts that date from 536 describe a dark fog that dimmed the sun and ushered in a wave of crop deaths. Until recently, scholars were open to the idea that these clouds were the remains of an asteroid or comet, but modern data confirms that the event was volcanic and that it was two volcanoes up to 4 years apart and not just one. Ice cores from Greenland and Antarctica show spikes of sulfate, a byproduct of large volcanic eruptions at 536 and either 539 or 540. The two volcanoes were so large and so violent they launched sulfur gases and particles miles into the sky. Since this material reflected sunlight away from the Earth's surface, it triggered severe global cooling. One 2016 study found that volcanoes decreased average global temperatures by as much as 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Crops in northern Europe and elsewhere failed, likely triggering starvation and disease. Through its ties to the volcanoes remained tenuous, the infamous plague of Justinian, which killed tens of millions of people, started in 541. during the worst cooling. And you need to learn more about human-caused climate change, which will cause more than 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit of warming without rapid emission reductions. Geologists surmise that 536 eruption from a high-altitude volcano, perhaps one in Iceland or Alaska, and that in 539 or 540 eruption was in the tropics, but the identities of the volcanoes were unknown. In the past, some scientists had considered Ilopango a possible suspect for for the 536 eruption. It had clearly erupted sometime between the 3rd and 6th centuries AD, depositing ash and rock across El Salvador to form a rock formation called the Tierra Blanca Joven, Spanish for young white earth. But precisely when Ilopango erupted and how it affected local people remained uncertain. In the late 1990s, Dole was a PhD student attempting to study El Salvador's past land use by looking at vegetation and sediment cores. But the more he looked, the more he noticed a whitish layer of ash. The Tierra Blanca Joven. My advisor said, eyes on the prize. This volcano thing is a distraction. And I just couldn't avert my eyes, says Dole. How many people were killed? How large of an area was affected? In 2001, Dahl tried to estimate Ilopango's effects on the local Maya, but he didn't make further headway until 2008 when two major studies grabbed Dahl's attention. In one, geologists published new evidence that the historical dust veil of 536 was caused by a volcano. In the other, researchers announced that Tierra Blanca Joven extended into marine sediments off the coast of El Salvador. The Tierra Blanca Joven eruption was even bigger than Dahl and others thought. However, pinning down the Ilopango eruption and whether it could have caused the cooling in the mid-6th century became a huge challenge. To pinpoint the eruption, researchers relied on radiocarbon dating, which takes advantage of the fact that living plants and whatever eats them absorbs traces of radiocarbon-14. Dead plants and animals no longer absorb carbon-14, and the trapped carbon starts to decay like clockwork. By counting out the products of this decay, scientists can see when the plant or animal died, a proxy for the age of objects found nearby. But background levels of carbon-14 naturally vary over time, which can lead to plateaus, time periods when organisms that lived decades apart look like they have the same radiocarbon age. Try as they might, earlier researchers couldn't nail down the Tierra Blanca Joven eruption because it fell within 122 plateau spanning the 5th and 6th centuries AD. One way to avoid plateaus is to find trees within the sediment of interest. With any luck, the trees lived part of their lives before and after the plateau. If so, they could yield data that would anchor the tree's age and the sediment age in turn. This is why Dahl's team was excited to hear about a quarry about 10 miles from Ilopango, where workers digging for road fill had found intact trees within the Tierra Blanca Joven. At the time of the eruption, gently falling ash had entombed the trees where they stood. One looked like a freshly fallen tree, said Dahl. The preservation conditions at that site are some of the most remarkable I've ever seen. Because the trees were so well preserved, Dahl and his team could figure out how old they were when the Ilopango eruption killed them. This new data, 100 new radiocarbon dates, point to the trees dying in the first half of the 6th century, most likely in 530s to 540s AD. Dahl's team also revised their estimates of Ilopango's size, taking into account the thickness and spread of the Tierra Blanca Joven deposits. They say that Ilopango may have dwarfed the 1815 Tambor eruption, a huge volcanic event that ushered in a year without summer because of the global cooling it caused. Ilopango likely launched up to millions tons of sulfur miles into the sky, high enough for stratospheric winds to spread and aerosols worldwide and trigger global cooling. Anyways, you guys, hope you liked the video. Hope y'all are doing great wherever you are in the world, day or night. Much love.